Maxxine, starring Mia Goth, Elizabeth Debicki and Kevin Bacon, has just released in theatres, and the third film by Ti West in his X trilogy is an installment that mostly delivers on the things set up in both X and Pearl. In particular, the ending of the film and the main twist surrounding Maxxine builds on the main story points of those previous films, and you might be a bit lost if you haven't seen them. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of Maxxine, discussing how the ending and the general plot of the movie continues from what we got in X and Pearl. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, nor the other films in this series, then I would recommend checking them out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more videos on upcoming movie releases like Maxxine, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for Maxxine and how it connects to the previous films. So Ti West's original film in his new series, X, became a triumphant return to the director's horror roots. The slasher paid homage to classic horror films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and features Mia Goth in dual roles. Set in 1979, the movie followed an adult film crew who encountered a terrifying ordeal at a rural farmhouse owned by elderly couple Howard and his wife Pearl. The team planned to film their amateur porn movie on the farm, featuring Maxine and Bobby Lynn from a Houston burlesque club. Maxine's boyfriend Wayne produced and oversaw the shoot, while Bobby Lynn's partner Jackson was the male actor. Also, cinematographer RJ directed the picture, while his partner Lorraine assisted by holding the boom mic. However, as the night came, Lorraine wanted to be a part of the naughty shoot herself, and RJ was angry at that decision. He stormed off towards the farmhouse, and one by one, they each became the target of an elderly Pearl with a mysterious vendetta. The motive behind the killings remained a secret until the sequel, except for the fact that Pearl bared a striking resemblance to a younger Maxxine. Mia Goth also portrayed the aged Pearl in that film, being transformed into the old woman with makeup and prosthetics. But shortly after X hit theatres, A24 unveiled the next chapter in Ti West's X series with Pearl. Serving as a prequel to X, Mia Goth portrayed a now youthful Pearl, taking place in 1918, with the movie delving into the backstory of the aspiring actress turned infamous killer, driven by her relentless pursuit of Hollywood stardom to commit evil acts of violence. In Texas, the young Pearl faced a challenging upbringing under the strict rules of her German immigrant mother Ruth. Taking care of her disabled father while her husband was away at war, Pearl displayed troubling signs of a mental illness, and despite her mother's lack of support for her dreams of becoming an actress, a local projectionist encourages her. After the projectionist visits her farm and eventually sees signs of her illness, Pearl begins to commit a series of murders, which includes him, her mother, and her father. And following a failed audition, Pearl confides in her sister-in-law Mitzi about her dark past, leading to a shocking turn of events where Mitzi becomes Pearl's final victim in that prequel film. At the very end, her husband returns from war, sees what she has done, and as we know from X, he soon becomes entangled in Pearl's murderous schemes. And this brings us to the latest film in the series, Maxxine, where Mia Goth returns as Maxine Minx from the first film X and makes a move to pursue her Hollywood dream. The movie kicks off with scenes from 1959 showing a young Maxine Miller dancing in front of the camera for her father, the strict preacher Ernest. Pearl had already seen a tape like this of Maxine from when she was older in X. In this new tape though, Ernest echoes his special mantra to her, saying, "I will not accept a life I do not deserve." Fast forward 26 years to 1985 LA, where Maxine Minx has left behind the quiet life of rural Texas for the glamour of Hollywood. She is now auditioning for The Puritan 2, a horror film helmed by director Elizabeth Bender, played by Elizabeth Debicki. It's a scene that makes us look back to that audition featured in Pearl, as while that was played as a piece of tragic failure for that character, this audition goes in the opposite direction for Maxine. After once again proving proving her talent, Maxine exits the audition in triumph, telling the other girls waiting to audition outside that she killed it. After this, Maxine's busy schedule takes her from shooting porn in the back of a strip club to celebrating her new job on the Puritan 2. Her friend Leon, who runs the video store below her apartment, warns her about the challenges of making it big in the industry. And despite his warnings, Maxine is determined to make a name for herself, inspired by the success stories of movie stars who started in horror films. Later that evening, Maxine and her stripper friend Tabby are deep in conversation about staying safe in the city, especially with the notorious Night Stalker on the loose. Little do they know, a mysterious figure in black gloves has been keeping a close eye on them all night. Tabby suggests that they attend a party in the hills, but Maxine politely refuses. But of course, Maxine is not one to be trifled with, and the film quickly highlights that when soon after her conversation with Tabby, she crushes the balls of a creepy stalker dressed like Buster Keaton after he followed her down a dark alley. However, Maxine's confidence wavers quickly as she's haunted by her past failures and regrets, just like Pearl was. After falling asleep during her and Leon's viewing of the first Puritan film, she wakes up to find a mysterious videotape left as her doorstep containing footage from the abandoned porno shoot during X. Urging Leon to track down the origin of the tape, Maxine rushes off to get her head cast for her film shoot, feeling uneasy as she remembers Pearl's ominous prediction that she was fated to follow in her footsteps. In a different part of the city, detectives Williams and Torres stumble upon the gruesome scene of Amber and Tabby's mutilated bodies, with their deaths also captured on tape. The women have been scarred with pentagrams, leading the detectives to suspect that they are the latest victims of the Night Stalker. Meanwhile, Maxine is then targeted with a chilling message that threatens to reveal her true identity, prompting her to confront a shady private investigator, John Labbert, portrayed by Kevin Bacon. She meets up with Labbert, who discloses that he's been hired by a mysterious client who is relentless in his pursuit of her. So with a deadline looming, Maxine must decide whether to attend a meeting at a mansion in the hills or risk exposure for her involvement in the 70s X murders. Once again, Maxine chooses to turn down the offer. But Maxine's pursuer cannot be dismissed so easily, because the Night Stalker strikes again, this time targeting Leon at the video store he works at, and the next day, Maxine is devastated as she watches the police carry out his lifeless body. Also at the scene, coppers Williams and Torres attempt to extract information from her, and despite their efforts, Maxine remains resolute, responding to their plea for assistance by stating that the next girl should fend for herself because that's what she did. Because of this unscheduled meeting, she arrives at the Hollywood studio lot late, and director Elizabeth Bender gives her a brief warning about being late to set. She does get an early pass though because it's the first day, and while there, she's introduced to Molly Bennett, the original Puritan actress who has come back to film flashback scenes for the second movie. In conversation, Molly tells Maxine outside of her trailer that Elizabeth is a tough yet dedicated director and is convinced that winning the favour of her will help propel her own career. And just like her friend Tabby said before she was killed, Molly reveals that she will be going to a private party at a producer's mansion later that evening. Maxine later runs into Elizabeth, who has a go at protesters denouncing horror movies in Hollywood and accusing the industry of being a cult. Elizabeth takes Maxine under her wing, recounting how the executives were hesitant to hire her, fearing that her background as a porn star would taint an occult horror film. She then guides Maxine to the iconic Bates Motel set and house from Psycho, which seems to be the main influence of this journey of Maxine, being both a victim and a killer. While there, she expresses her support for Maxine's unique X-Factor persona, which she effectively displayed during her audition. But despite the director's encouragement, Maxine remains haunted by her past, as evidenced by her vision of Pearl appearing at the window of the house. After a bit more convincing, Elizabeth persuades her to eliminate any obstacles hindering her work, and Maxine swiftly agrees. But soon after, she finds herself being pursued by Labbert on the lot. Seeking safety, she hides in the Psycho house and is rescued by a security guard just in time. This then makes her seek assistance from her agent, Teddy Knight, played by the legendary Giancarlo Esposito. They devise a plan to trap Labbert, who not only suffered a beaten face from Maxine earlier while trailing her in town, but also assisted the Night Stalker in committing his murders. Labbert falls into this trap as he follows Maxine to a nightclub, believing that he has the upper hand, and once he follows her into the toilets, he discovers that she had escaped through a cubicle window. Rushing outside to the alley, he encounters Maxine, Teddy, and their filmmaker friend, who capture him. They dump him along with his car into a car crusher outside of town, and despite his desperate plea, he's eventually squashed and killed. So now safe from Labbert, you'd think that Maxine is free to pursue her dream. Well, not yet, because a news report on the Night Stalker reminds her that he's still around. Determined to solve the problem, she makes her way to the secluded home beneath the Hollywood sign where she had been invited previously, and at the time she doesn't know that both cops, Williams and Torres, are tailing her too. Once inside the house, Maxine is shocked to find an old clip of herself dancing on a TV, indicating that the Night Stalker knows her from her past. To her horror, she discovers that the killer was none other than her own deranged preacher father, Ernest, who had been using Labbert to track her down and eliminate anything he deemed sinful, including her friends and her dreams of stardom in Hollywood. Having a taste for the cinematic, Ernest went beyond just eliminating Maxine's companions, as he meticulously recorded the murders to turn Maxine into the leading lady of his own film, a satanic documentary unveiling the dark side of Hollywood. As Ernest and his cult followers now gear up for filming the movie's dramatic climax, they tie Maxine up to a tree. They force her to make a decision between renouncing her sins or being burned alive. However, the cops that were tailing her arrive just in time. Williams and Torres manage to take down most of the cult members, allowing Maxine to break free from the tree that she was tied to. But Ernest also escapes and makes his way up towards the Hollywood sign, leading the cops and Maxine to follow him. Maxine races after the police and her father, only to come across an injured Torres and Williams, who had been stabbed with a crucifix. Not far from there, she also finds a wounded Ernest. She grabs a nearby shotgun, points it at him, while noticing a federal helicopter shining its light down from above. And as she faces her father, she begins to envision her life beyond this critical moment. In the vision, Maxine and her lawyer Teddy are guests on a popular talk show, talking about Maxine's survival and her lead role in the highly anticipated Puritan 2. Later, at the movie's premiere, Maxine is greeted by adoring fans and journalists as she walks the red carpet and shares her advice for aspiring young actors. The bright lights of the cameras flash in Maxine's eyes, and then we snap back to reality, where Maxine is still at the top of the Hollywood sign, holding a gun to Ernest's head. This vision made her realise that this very moment is the one that's going to mark the start of her rise to stardom, and after convincing Ernest to declare, "I refuse to live a life I don't deserve," she pulls the trigger and shoots him in the head. We then come to the final scenes of the movie, where Maxine is in her trailer, gearing up to return to the set of the Puritan film. Despite her continuing cocaine addiction, she now uses her actor's card to take it. And in the past, Maxine would look in the mirror and declare herself a sex symbol, but now she sees herself as a true star. Once on set, director Elizabeth Bender pays a brief tribute to Molly, the star of the first Puritan film who was murdered, but then quickly undermines this by suggesting to Maxine that Molly lacked the potential to become a bigger star beyond these films. The filming of the next scene for the Puritan 2 begins, featuring a decapitated prop head of Maxine lying on the bed, leaving the real Maxine in awe of the detail. And when Elizabeth brings up her stardom, Maxine insists that she never wants it to end, just as the 80s classic Betty Davis Eyes begins to play. Elizabeth warned Maxine before about the harsh reality of Hollywood, in that it can make you a star one day and discard you the next, just like it did with Molly. So Maxine may be the new sensation now, but it won't stay that way forever, and the prop head symbolises this brutal truth. As the credits begin to roll, the camera pans out from the set and glides past the iconic Hollywood sign, which now reads Maxxine. The shot continues to ascend into the sky, eventually revealing a shooting star, which mirrors both Maxine and Pearl's shared desires for stardom in Ti West's horror trilogy. So that was the end of the director's latest film in his X series, and after reaching the end of this latest installment, we are left asking, is there a possibility of another film to follow Maxine? Well, if you recall the credits of X, you might remember the unexpected trailer for the prequel Pearl that came after. This movie had been kept under wraps until then, and then when it did come out later in the same year, it teased the title for the new film Maxine. When we reached the end of Maxine, the new film didn't tease another entry, but instead gave us a nod to the 80s setting with a rewind graphic appearing on screen. So we'll have to see if any teases for another film come out in the future, but as of now, we don't have any new hints. The only other thing that did come out recently was a quote from director Ti West, who said in a recent interview, "I do have one idea that plays into these movies that could maybe happen. I am very tired, but there's certainly a movie there. Howard came home to some pretty crazy stuff in Pearl, so we'll see, you never know." So this quote from the director could suggest that we might get a prequel which covers more of what happened after the events of Pearl when Pearl's husband came home and discovered her bloodshed. And in X, Howard continues to aid her as the murders persist. The shift from the events in Pearl to X presents an intriguing avenue for further exploration, so there's always the chance that the filmmaker could cover that in a later film. But for right now, we bring this trilogy to a close with Maxine realizing her ambition of becoming a star and her ties to her father's crimes playing a role in that success. We further find out at the end that the rights to her life story were acquired for a potential film adaptation, so maybe another film could also pick up around the process of that happening. So we'll have to see, but the newest update suggests that the director's successful horror trilogy has indeed come to an end. But that was my breakdown and analysis for Maxine. Overall, Ti West's latest horror film was a satisfying one, and while I did think it was the weakest of the bunch, I still thought that the main journey of Maxine was delivered on, and it was again another solid entry in this series. Personally, I don't think it needs any more installments, but it will be interesting nonetheless to see if Ti West does expand it more. But I hope my breakdown helped you guys understand the main events a bit better, and I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are towards the director's latest film. So let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on upcoming movie releases like Maxine, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.